Voltron Season 4, Episode 4, The Voltron Show. Now this episode I mentioned in my last review perfectly goes with some of the crazier moments of the last episode because this whole thing was just a hilarious comedy episode that I completely loved. It was pretty much 100% filler. Technically it's not, which is the funny thing about it. It seems like it's filler the whole way through, but technically they are building up the coalition throughout the entire episode. It's as crazy as it is, this is technically working, so when we need to go to that big battle, we do actually have more people by the end of the episode. So it's kind of funny, it feels like filler going through, but it actually is one of the most important episodes. It's just the craziest thing, because the whole thing is just silly. It starts off as alright, we're doing our shows, they do this really, really crappy play of an old hospital for aliens pretty much. And everyone has to come out, and Karan did scripts for everybody, so they're reading. And I love the way they did it too, because everyone comes out and they're reading, and Shiro's yeah, we did this, and then he has to tap on it to scroll down, and then he keeps reading. And then the only person that's really invested in any of this is Lance. He comes out, his script is memorized, and he's having a great time with it. And so they go through, they do their first show, and it's terrible. Everyone's just gone by the end. It's alright, well, that really sucked, so let's get out of here. So everybody's leaving, and as Karan is leaving, he runs into the old shopkeeper dude that he was bargaining with before in Season 2, I believe it was. Or it may have been Season 3. I think it was Season 2, I can't remember. But he's oh, I remember you, you're the guy, from the mall. So they go through this whole bargaining process, and it's hey, if you, basically it was you should probably do these drugs, and it'll be better for you. So they go through this crazy bargaining system, and Karan ends up getting the little pill. So after everything's all said and done, they leave and they go to this other planet. And it turns out that this dude was super pissed because they were there on the wrong day and Karan screwed up the calculations. And that guy was so mad at him. He was you guys are supposed to be here yesterday. And it was everybody came out for clear day. They were waiting for you guys. Everyone said, where's Voltron? Where's Voltron? I was don't worry, they're showing up. And then you guys didn't show up and they were really mad at me. And then the monster comes out of the ground. He was oh, yeah, that's this thing. It comes out every single day, except for one. Guess which day that was? And it was we get it, you're super pissed off. So that scene I thought was really funny. And so they go through this whole process, whereas Karan really screwed up. And he's hey, just give me one more opportunity. We need, kind of these shows for the coalition because it needs to kind of bring people in, even if it's, over the top. And everyone goes to sleep for the night, and it turns out that there's a bug inside of this pill, so it cracks out. And then it ends up going into his ear. It made me think of, Parasite Maximum. It made me think of that, where it was his thing went into his ear. It didn't go into his ear in the anime, but it just made me think of that. So this bug goes into his ear, and it latches onto his brain. And for some reason, that kind of makes him a little southern, which I thought was really funny. And they had this song. Every time he was talking, they had this little beat play, which I thought was really funny. But he's going through and he's super amped. It's yeah, this is what we have to do. And we go out and do these crazy shows. And when we go out, because they end up going back to the mall, it's I don't want you guys to step out on the stage. You need to roll out on the stage or jump out on the stage. And, they cut back and forth as they go on. Everybody lands. They do the Power Rangers pose and everything. And then he's and when you speak, don't say your lines, you scream your lines. And then they cut to it. And that was the funny part to me because they were just screaming. It wasn't they were getting into screaming. It was they were just literally saying their lines just louder. And I was there was no emotion. They were just doing the lines just louder. Even Hunk, I could barely tell what he was saying because it sounded like he was screaming so fast that the words just ran together. But I was able to read it because I had the subtitles on. So it was super funny just watching them. They're screaming and stuff. And it's you have to be in there. You have to live the action and all this stuff. So it was super funny. And it worked. That first show was a huge hit at the mall. And this guy's I want to join the Voltron Coalition, and they made it seem it was super fun and everything. And so they continue going on, and the shows get bigger and badder, and they're doing a really big show, and then they end up doing a crazy ice show, which was funny. And then after, I think it was after the ice show, that's when Karan kind of pushes things even further. Where it's okay, everyone has to have their set persona. They have to be this specific kind of, stereotype, within the stories. So of course you have Pidge as the science whiz who is forced to say all these fake words that Karan just made up. And I love his explanation. He was oh, they'd be confused even if we used the real words. And that was his excuse for using a bunch of fake words. So I thought that was funny. I was that kind of makes sense, but at the same time he could just use the real words, but he's just using whatever. So Pidge is for science. Hunk is the comedy, so they trip him up when he goes out on the show. Lance is lover boy Lance. Well, Lura is unfortunately Keith the whole way through. So everybody has their archetypes, and then Shiro is Shiro the hero. And so they go through and they start having, bigger and better shows, and it's working even though everyone kind of hates it. It's like, this is embarrassing stuff. They go through, I think it was the ice skating show, where they got into like the boxes and they were shooting like confetti and stuff out. And that's where we meet Bebo, which is the funniest thing ever. Like, all those people were just like they're like balloons. They're like balloons that clowns use, and they all had different hairstyles and everything, which is probably my favorite part. It was like, they're just little walking, talking balloons with arms that apparently can stretch and shrink or something, because at the end, when Bebo actually ended up saving Karan, he like flipped over and like reached into his ear, and I was like, were his hands always that tiny? And then he like blows himself up like an actual balloon, and he like whacks the bug out into the arena, and I was like, okay, they can like change their shape in really odd ways, but they always talk saying like Bebo, Bebo and stuff. So that was super funny to me, just the whole episode. And then of course Karan, as things went on, was getting crazier and crazier, and it's like, the part where he was mad at everybody was one of my favorite parts for sure, because he was mad at Bebo, and then he left, and it was like, I'll fire all of you guys, none of you will be on the show anymore. And he's like, except for you, Shiro, you're our best character, but none of you will ever work in show business again. And of course Lance was upset because he's the only one that actually cares about the show. So he was like, you're the best character, you're the most popular one. So definitely a funny episode. And as he continues to freak out after that moment, he goes back to the planet and he actually picks up one of the creatures that was there, and he takes it to the show, and they actually have to fight it. And because he was on the back of this creature as it was like flipping out, it actually knocked him unconscious, and that allowed him to go through like this little moment where he was like, Bebo, I need your help. And they do a Star Wars reference, which I love. He was like, help me, Bebo, you're my only hope. So Bebo ends up helping him, and then he's able to warn the team that it's an actual danger. So they deal with it a little bit, and they have their little tussle, and then basically they just kick a light out of the arena, and that was it, which I thought was super weird, because I was like, don't they still technically have to like destroy this thing, or at least take it somewhere? But it was kind of just like they kicked the lights outside of the arena, and it followed the lights, and then it was just gone forever. And I was like, I guess it's done. I was like, I thought they would have to like show them taking it to the planet, or they would still have to beat it up or knock him unconscious. It just left because they followed the lights. And then it was like, okay. And then it cut to like them after the show and everything was good. And I was like, oh, I guess that's done. I thought it was super weird that it was just like, that's how it ended officially. It wasn't like they had to go out of the arena and officially, destroy it, or at least, like I said, knock it unconscious, so that they could protect everyone. It just like went out into the city, I would assume. I mean, that's how most arenas work. I don't know. But I was like, it just went outside the arena, and still bunch of people right there, aren't there? So it just ended, and that was all there was to it. And I was like, oh, I guess it's over, no big deal. But I love the episode for sure. It's definitely hilarious, and Karan just going crazy, getting crazier and crazier. I almost want to rewatch the episode just for like the little music every time he's talking, because he was like so into everything he was saying. He was so insanely enthusiastic, and the beat that they just kept playing behind it was oddly catchy. It wasn't like something I would just like listen to, but it was working perfectly for the style that they were going for, because it was definitely pseudo Southern, which I thought was the funniest thing. Was like, this character is played by like a British guy, and then they had him like do like a little Southern thing. So I thought it was just like the funniest thing. So that made me laugh. But the whole episode itself was hilarious, and like I said, it was one of those weird things where it felt like it was filler, but technically by the end, as crazy as Karan was, being mind controlled, all of that stuff worked. People were like, holy crap, this looks amazing. And it was almost weird, because I was thinking of like actual war recruit stuff, and I was like, this is actually kind of weird, because that's how it is in real life, where they make it seem super cool. And it's like, you're going to war, that's not a joke. And they just make it, they do like cool stuff. You're like, you can have this and have that, and it's super awesome. It's like, yeah, but war is not awesome. War is serious. And that's what I was thinking of, because that's kind of the point of them doing that. And it's almost, in a sense, it's tricking the people to make it seem cool, like fighting in war is awesome. It's like, no, it is not. But like, that's what we have in the real world. But it's super funny watching it, because I was like, that is actually what it's like a little bit. It doesn't get as bombastic as what they did, of course, but that's kind of what recruiters, actual army recruiters are kind of meant to do, is make it seem far more entertaining than just you going to war, or heck, even just boot camp. That's tough for people, and you get yelled at a bunch. I don't like that. I don't know if you guys do, but that's not my thing. But it was just funny watching that. Like, the whole episode was just great. It was like, how, like, you have this crazy episode that seems like filler, but it's not, and it just all came together, and it was just perfect by the end. So, love the episode. I've seen the next one, and I'm waiting to watch the premiere until I review my next episode, but it sucks. It's almost over. Like, it's crazy. I wish this season and last season weren't so short, but the only reason, it's like this is because they split it up that way. They probably just weren't finished with this half, so they just made it 2 separate seasons. But still great, still great going through it, and everything we've had this season so far. There's always something in there. Like this one, I think even more so than the last one, is like, oh, like I said, the filler element. But the last episode, even though half that story was silly, the other half was Lotor being banished and them finding out exactly what he was doing and how he created a rift between with everyone from himself. So it's like, all right, that's definitely huge. And then this is like, even though it's kind of the background element of it, in a sense, it's the forefront, and it's the coalition. It's them recruiting people was the whole point of the episode, and that's exactly what they do, which makes it absolutely relevant. It's like one of the most important episodes solely for that fact, because of course, eventually they're going to need the coalition. So it's like, man, it's so crazy how an episode like this still has such insane relevance. Like without this moment and everything they went through with Crazy Karan doing the shows, they wouldn't have nearly as many people to help them when they eventually decide to get to the final battle. So it's like, that's weird how well it actually implements itself as much as it seems like filler, because it's just like a silly story throughout the episode. But I definitely loved it. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And this is a random question, but I would actually love to know which characters you guys would like to see have a crazy moment like Karan. Like everyone's so different, and we've kind of had that, like just the tiniest little bit with Hunk and Lance when they did like the mermaid thing when they were like being drugged pretty much. But it wasn't crazy like this. I would love to see. It's hard to say. I wouldn't mind seeing Shiro go crazy because he's always the calm, composed leader. I would love to see that happen. If it's in a comedic sense, I don't know if he went crazy what that would really mean, but I think that would be cool to see him go crazy. Would be awesome. Allura. I think the characters that don't really have like outward crazy expressions, I would like to see them go crazy the most. So it's like Shiro, Allura, and Keith are definitely the ones. Like Lance would probably just be Lance, a little bit crazier, and that's really it. Pidge and Hunk definitely don't do it as much, but they have like their own different emotions, and I don't know how that would play out. But definitely the characters that kind of keep all their emotions within, I would like to see them go crazy, and definitely in a comedic sense. But if it was a more serious sense, I wouldn't hate that either. But we'll love to know which character you guys would like to see go crazy, or if you have like all the characters in the order already, for whatever reason, already thought about that. We'll love to read that, and of course, want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.